let me ask you this, because today obviously is the NFL draft. Is there one player that you feel like is the perfect fit for your team? Now, as a fan of the Chicago Bears, I would tell you Joe Alt.
Mm-hmm.
If I could have any player in this draft, I think Joe Alt is the guy that I would want the Bears to take. Not quarterback, but when you have the number one pick and you have circumstances and you can't do that. But I think for the Chicago Bears, Joe Alt would be my guy.
Yeah, and Joe Alt's certainly on the list of guys in this draft that is pretty much, can't miss. I mean, I don't know, how it gets much more reliable than that. I mean, you look at the draft and, there are obviously positions that are more reliable than others in terms of, hit probability. A guy like Joe Alt is certainly on that list of dudes who is most likely going to be an all-world contributor.
I would agree with that.
For the Bears, I think that's what's difficult, or for any team really, picking a number one. Like when you're picking a number one, obviously you weren't very good last year and you have a variety of needs. And, again, this is what I was saying before they traded Justin Fields. If you're going to trade Justin Fields, that's going to make it so that you have multiple needs that, you're going to have to figure out a way to obviously draft Caleb at 1. And then you're going to have to decide, wide receiver or O-line. And that's the thing, because this is obviously someone, it doesn't take rocket science to understand that this is someone who can move around and avoid pressure. But I'm also a huge believer, like I said yesterday on the show, when it's the NFL, like running away from pressure, you don't get to scramble for like 10 seconds regularly. This is someone who is going to have to run and know where the escape hatch is. And I think the Bears are in this position where they're almost being forced to go wide receiver, because you can go O-line, but if it's just DJ Moore and I guess Cole Kmet, and that's pretty much it. Like a defense can handle 2 guys. Once you have a third guy, that's when things start to get a little more challenging for a defense to kind of control you and keep things in line. So if I'm the Bears, yeah, Joe Alt's probably the most reliable pick, but I think, going after, again, Marvin Harrison Jr. or whatever wide receiver they covet is probably the way you're going to have to go based on where you're picking.
Well, I'd also remind you, Keenan Allen's on that club. And I don't know why. I don't know why Keenan Allen, and you're not alone in this. Most people forget that Keenan Allen's a Chicago Bear. And please don't say bear or bears. It's bear or Bears. I mean, you look at their weapons, and you look at DeAndre Swift, Khalil Herbert, I would think would be back at full strength.
Mm-hmm.
I think DeAndre Swift for the Bears is terrifying to me.
Yeah.
Because I think he is coming off of the best year of his career. You never want to sign the guy coming off a career year. And I think the Bears took some risks there. I think Rashawn Johnson has a chance to be the best running back on that roster. We'll see. But they are finally deep there. They are deep at tight end with Gerald Everett and Cole Kmet. I think Cole Kmet is an absolute stud. I have no doubt about his ability to be one of the best tight ends in the NFL. And it's all going to come down to Caleb Williams and his ability to get the right shade of orange nail polish.
Mm-hmm.
And if he is able to
tell me without telling me
Nothing.
that the nail polish thing is an issue, Caleb Williams, because what did we get on SportsCenter today on draft day? Oh, a heartfelt, one-off special sit down with Caleb Williams talking about, how his mom, this sweet old lady, worked 2 jobs. And, he wasn't crying after the game because they lost. He was crying because of what his mom provided for him and just the moment. Okay, dude, tell me that you're trying to run a PR campaign to
But
settle down the nail polish thing.
Are we still on nail polish and crying?
Yes, 100%. We're gonna be on that until he shows that he doesn't do that anymore.
My biggest concern for the Chicago Bears drafting Caleb Williams is his footwork and his size. My concern is not his nail polish. You look at the list of accolades that this cat, the trophies this cat, the wins this cat's already got in the bank. I don't give a rat's ass what color he paints his nails. I don't care that he openly loves his mother and cries after his career. I don't. I am far more concerned about Caleb Williams as a Chicago Bear because I do worry about his size a little bit. There's a lot of quarterbacks in this draft that have size issues, and we've talked about this ad nauseum with Jaden Daniels.
Can you measure it?
You know, like I not everybody can be Michael Penix. They can't have big Penix energy, right? Like, and yet he's not the top pick. Caleb Williams to the Chicago Bears is going to be the top pick for a very good reason.
I don't mind him playing at 215. That's his listed weight. 6'1" is more the issue that I have. I love to see that be, 6'3", and I don't. So this is the conundrum again for the Bears. Like I don't know. Like this is going to come down to how you evaluate their roster, right? Like because you had just said, hey, well, you basically have weapons. You picked up Keenan in the offseason. Like you have people to throw the football to. You have some playmakers here to work with. So the only question really is how do they evaluate the roster? Because if they feel like, as an example, hey, Keenan Allen's an injury risk. Keenan Allen's a guy that's probably going to play 13 weeks a year, 12 weeks a year.
Yep.
So if that's your concern, then you're going to go out and get another wide receiver. But if your thought is, hey, we're going to deal with whatever happens in the wide receiver room, but we want to make sure that KO is protected, then obviously you're going to go out and get Joe Alt. And that's what I think is difficult.
Captain Revlon is my guy, Caleb Williams. If you're the Chicago Bears and you draft Caleb Williams, you cannot be faulted for that. I look at the fit, perfect fit. You want a guy who does not bend or take a knee during pressure. This guy gets better, not worse in big moments. This guy gets better, not worse under pressure in the pocket. If you add a Rome Odunze, who most people think they're going to pick at 9, if you add that guy, if Malik Neighbors, who's one of the guys that people feel like is going to drop, if you add an Odunze or a Malik Neighbors, what you are doing there is you are finally, and it almost as a fan of the Chicago Bears, pains me to say this out loud. The Bears are actually going to have enough talent, hear me out, to have 4 receiving options on the field at once. Holy shit. I said it. I know. It's crazy. It's DJ Moore and Cole Kmet are clearly your 2 best receivers. You add Keenan Allen, and then you add a Malik Neighbors or a Rome Odunze, and I think it's more likely to be Rome. I can't believe Malik Neighbors is available at 9. If this character stuff continues to pile on top of him, okay. If you add Rome Odunze to that mix in Chicago where he's not counted on to be the number 1 receiver, he's not counted on to be the number 2 receiver, he's not counted on to be your 3rd option. If he's your 3rd or 4th option for the Bears, you're in really good shape.
I'm for real.
And if your offensive line is not going to be top half in the NFL this year, because I think all of us agree the Bears offensive line will not, but if you are going to have a backfield where you can consistently have a release valve like DeAndre Swift or Khalil Herbert, it doesn't matter how mediocre your offensive line is, because you're going to be far less susceptible to the blitz when you have not 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, but 5 actual receiving targets. The Bears in my lifetime, I don't believe have ever been in a position where you can say, I can throw it to any of these 5 guys and it could be a touchdown.
Brandon Marshall wasn't getting it done for you?
I mean, in all honesty, and you look at the play action and the RPO that we've seen Caleb Williams run already, he's operating at an NFL level in RPO and play action. His ability, and I know that this sometimes people get into the weeds on this kind of shit, but his pre-snap ability is already NFL elite.
Mm-hmm.
His ability to, if you look at Caleb Williams, and this is why he's the number one quarterback in this draft, and I don't know that anybody argues that. His ability to move defenders before the football is snapped is by far the best in this draft. I wish he had better footwork. I wish he was a little wider frame. But I don't care about nail polish. I don't care that he cried walking off the field. The kid balls out in the biggest games. And USC certainly did not lose to Utah 26 straight times in the last 2 years because he painted his nails.
Mm-hmm. That
to me is that's the biggest thing. His pre-snap ability, his ability to operate under pressure in pressure situations. That's why this kid's going to be number one. His arm is unquestioned.
Yeah.
His mentality is unquestioned in game. I love the cat. I think he's number one.
I certainly don't think you can go wrong drafting him. I think that, again, it's all situational when you get drafted. For the Bears, you're going to have to, you're going to still have to develop this guy. I hope people don't think that this is like just a guaranteed, all pro quarterback jumping on your roster here. Like, yes, he is very good. Yes, he, pre-snap is great. Yep. But ultimately, I don't care who you are. The NFL game is much faster than the college game, and he's going to have to make adjustments. And I think he'll make those adjustments, and I think he'll be just fine. But again, I'm not going to sit here and have faith in this organization to develop not only him, but a roster when they haven't done that yet. If they develop him and they truly give him the right system, he's going to be great. He's going to be absolutely great. But again, if you're asking someone to play against the grain of how they typically play, they're probably not going to give you the top end results that you want. And that's what this organization has done repeatedly.
Certainly.
And we haven't even gotten to the stadium situation and all the other distractions around the organization.
Can I have one day where we don't talk about how stupid they are?
You weren't expecting this one.
As a business unit, can we just please focus on the fact that today, coming up in 12 hours from now, when Caleb Williams is announced as a Chicago Bear, can we just live in the moment of having a big fat chub?
Stay hard.
That they got finally a franchise quarterback?
No.
Can we live in the moment that at the 9th pick,
stay hard,
you're going to have an elite, probably wide receiver weapon on this roster?
Daddy?
Can we please not talk about the fact that the Bears are proposing a stadium that doesn't fucking include parking spots?
Oh.
Wait, you ain't got a parking lot on that thing? What do you mean it doesn't have parking spots?
Did you guys? The Chicago Bears, the Chicago Bears are proposing a stadium that does not offer, doesn't offer parking spots. Asks for $2.6 billion in taxpayer money from the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois. The governor, Pritzker, already, when he was asked about it, he actually chuckled. There's when you have children and they hurt you because your kids, they hurt you. Remember that a certain somebody brought up the Bears stadium plan.
It's fucking Cole Beasley.
No, it wasn't Cole Beasley. It was you who brought it up.
And his name is John C.
Right? I'm just over here, Lil Montying, trying to enjoy the Bears having the best quarterback in the draft.
Facial recognition.
The best quarterback in the draft. I don't know what facial recognition is. Anyway, I'm trying to enjoy having 4 wide receiver options.
Right.
And you got to bring up the stadium.
You don't always have to be negative.
I wish you wouldn't be negative all the time.
I'm giving you a fucking answer.
San Diego State Glenn would like everybody to know he's an AI bot.
Oh,
Mike Smith, and his name is Jakey Two Holes.
yeah.
It's actually right. Boyd Lake, they plan to have everyone teleport into their seats. James T. Kirk style. How do you propose a state? Who are you?
Pause, bro. Pause.
And their owners aren't even LDS. So this is even more ridiculous that you are. That was a Ryan Smith. I love all the
Donnie,
assholes
please.
that last night that were like, hey, Monty, did you see they sold 29,000 season tickets? Yeah, there's only 19,000 seats in the stadium. There's a waiting list. Monty, there's a waiting list. Everybody wants the NHL and Utah. Are you not supposed to be excited about it? Everybody's excited. I hope you support.
Did you think people weren't going to show up? Like,
Anyway.
Show up.
Anyway. Dakota Tubbs, the McCaskies are not the friends of the park. Do you guys understand that the Chicago Park District in the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois and the county of Cook will own the stadium? The Bears won't even own the stadium. And they're trying to dictate how much city land they're going to take. They didn't ask. They just said, okay, the stadium you own, here's how much of the land we're going to take. There's a limit on how much lakefront acreage can be developed. Apparently the Bears forgot that because no, I'm not doing it today. Caleb Williams, I don't care about your fingernail polish. I want to win Super Bowls. And I think Caleb Williams does that. Does Caleb Williams bust in the NFL?
no, I think he hits.
I think he's a hit too.
I think he ends, and I'm being serious. I think he ends the trend of crappy USC quarterback in the league. I think he's the first guy who has non-USC roots at the beginning of his college career, who's going to get drafted number 1 overall, and he will live up to it.
Yeah.
I think it may take a season, right? I think there's an adjustment period, and again, I'm going to keep saying it. The organization needs to prove that they have the goods too, and I agree that they're making good decisions on the roster. I would agree you have the weaponry, but you have to put it together now. You have to have, good OTAs. You got to have a good training camp. You got to be able to really, put this quarterback situation to bed. Bring him in, draft him, have him be the starter, start him week 1, and let's get to work. I mean, that's I don't know why it would go any other direction.
I don't know either. And let's get into it. In the comments section, drop your top 3 picks. This is your chance, Hyena, to have a say. Show us your lightning bolt.
What are you, nuts?
Who are the top 3 picks in order? Feel free to throw in a trade because I do think the Patriots are going to trade out at 3.
Mm-hmm.
Show me your lightning bolt.
Mm-hmm.
Number 1 on the draft board.
The Bears.
The Chicago Bears select Caleb Williams, quarterback at USC.
Mm-hmm.
He immediately walks out with orange and blue fingernail paint. Jake, who do you have going number 1?
Caleb Williams. Yeah.
To the Chicago
Bears.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I love the pick. I think he's a franchise quarterback. I think that they have done an excellent job. They knew the moment that they sucked out loud and took the heart and soul from us last year by winning games and not firing Matt Ebersucks,
What are we doing?
that they would have 2 picks in the top 10. They knew as soon as Carolina, that they'd have the number 1 pick. They knew it was Caleb Williams. They knew it.
Mm-hmm.
They've seen nothing to change that. I love the infrastructure they put in place. The Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift combination was unbelievable. I think the idea that you are deep at both wide receiver, tight end, and running back now, I think tells you that they have built the infrastructure. They have the offense. I think Caleb Williams is going to be wholly and roundly supported in Chicago by the fans and the organization. I think Caleb Williams is finally the home run that us Bears fans deserve. Caleb Williams, the number 1 pick.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's where things get interesting. Number 2 goes to the Washington Football Club, who's poorly named the Commanders. Who do you think they take number 2?
I agree with what everyone's saying. They're going Jaden Daniels.
Have to.
Yeah.
The slight, much maligned physical presence of Jaden Daniels justified. His spectacular playmaking, his ability to get outside the pocket, all of that makes him an elite prospect. But don't lose yourself here. I believe this is the quarterback with the highest bust threshold. I believe that Caleb Williams does line up with Trey Lance. He does line up with RG3. Both of whom. Jaden Daniels does, yes.
You say Caleb Williams. Jaden Daniels.
Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
He lines up with a Trey Lance. Jaden Daniels lines up with an RG3. Jaden Daniels is the quarterback in this draft with the highest bust potential. And I think if you are the Washington Commanders and Dan Quinn, and again, this is another organization that has gone out of their way to build an infrastructure with new ownership, no more porn for the cheerleaders, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they have changed the culture. Dan Quinn is a culture building phenomenon in this league. Everything's in place. They are going to do what needs to be done to facilitate growth and development here. But Jaden Daniels is going to have to rapidly improve his mechanics, and he is going to have to put on significant proper weight to reach his potential as a number 1 caliber NFL quarterback. Because today I don't believe he's that. But he will be the number 2 pick.
Yeah.
Now the intrigue.
Mm-hmm.
What do the New England Patriots do? I don't believe they make this pick. There's too much talk in the NFL ethos. Too much talk in the ethos about them trading and they're not getting what they want. And I think that the New England Patriots are well aware that their biggest need right now is likely quarterback. But there's too much availability, and I believe that ultimately they end up with Big Penix energy. But I think if you look at the teams that are aggressively trying to trade up, the 3, 4, 5 spot is where that's going to happen. I think that the very interesting team here is Minnesota. Does Minnesota make a deal to get to 3, or are they looking at 6, 7, 8? Are they looking at 3, 4, 5? How much are they willing to give up? I think it's a very big question.
Yeah, I think they're incentivized to go out and get the 3rd pick because you don't have a quarterback right now. And I don't think Minnesota is looking to take a flyer. I don't think they want to make this pick as reliable as it can get. And yes, everyone said that, hey, JJ McCarthy is going to be available at 11, right? But what if JJ's not their number 1 guy? What if he is one of the guys that they would pick? But what if they like Drake Maye? What if, they like, Michael Penix and they shock the world, right? Like I'm a big believer that teams and organizations that have had a quarterback the way they had Kirk Cousins for all those years, and his ability and the yardage he was able to put down every single season. Now that you don't have that, you got to go out and find someone who can at least be some semblance of that. And my concern is that I think Drake Maye would be a much better fit for what they are asking him to do than JJ McCarthy would be for the Vikings. And that's why I say don't be shocked if they come off of JJ and they go with Drake and they trade up to get him.
Here's the problem in this position, though, for the Patriots. One, I think you made a terrible decision with your head coach. I think Mayo is a huge mistake. I don't believe that this franchise is an elite football franchise. I think Brady and Belichick were elite talents. I don't believe they have that anymore. I don't believe they make good decisions, which is why I believe they will trade this pick. But you want to know if they're serious about winning. If they're serious about winning, they will pick at number 3 because they have to. I don't think you can trade this third pick. If you're the New England Patriots and you're serious about getting back to that dynasty before old rub and tug Bob Kraft dies, and you want to win nothing, old rub and tug, are you kidding me? Anyway, before Bobby Tugboat dies,
My bad.
if you want to win another Super Bowl, you'll draft a quarterback here. Because I think when you look at the available quarterbacks, there's only, in my opinion, 3 really elite quarterbacks in this draft. I think they are Caleb Williams, Michael Penix, and Drake May. You have the ability to get 2 of those 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Take your pick, evaluate the talent, make a selection. And if they do that and they draft Drake May or Michael Penix, I have to think that they're going to put themselves on the right path forward. But sadly, if you're a Patriot fan, I believe they trade that pick. If my feet are to the fire, I think they trade it.
Mm-hmm.
When teams are openly bitching that they're not getting enough of an offer to trade out of that spot, which is what the Patriots are doing, they want a better offer. And they want to see what their highest best offer is. And I think they will take it.
Yeah.
And I think they will trade out. And my guess is, my guess is looking at the draft order, Arizona's not trading.
Nope.
They're drafting a wide receiver. The LA Chargers absolutely could trade out, but is there a more prototypical pick in this incarnation of the NFL draft than Joe Alt to the great cheater Harbaugh? I don't think there is. I don't think there is. I think
the
that
great cheater Harbaugh.
yeah. Yeah, you know. I think that the Chargers get whoever that they want. The 2 are Joe Alt and JC Latham. And you're going to have the ability to draft that guy at 5 unless you trade out. And I think this is where it gets interesting. Do you believe that Tennessee drafts at 7? This is a fascinating question, because if Tennessee drafts at 7, I believe that they're going to take the best available offensive lineman.
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, if there is a trade here, and the only reason you would trade up to 5, 6, or 7 is to make sure you get Roma Dunze. That's the only reason any team would trade up into that spot.
Right.
I think the Chargers are taking offensive line. I think the Arizona Cardinals are taking Malik Neighbors or Marvin Harrison Jr. And therefore, I think the best opportunity to get yourself a quarterback is at 3 or at 5 and 6. The Patriots had better draft in the 3rd spot. And if they do, I think they have to take Drake May or Michael Penix.
Agreed. Completely. I just look, man, those are the 2 best talents if you're drafting at 3. Like, and you need a quarterback. I mean, there's no other way around it. And yeah, I think you're right. Nobody's going to move up 3 spots when you're sitting at, 9 or 8. You're not going to move up from there unless you're trying to get a premier talent that you're concerned about not being there. So yeah, I mean, I think that's spot on. And I just think the only question that remains for the draft order in the top 10 is the Vikings at 11 and what they're going to do. Because if they're going to sit on their hands and draft JJ at 11, then I think this order stays largely unchanged. I don't see a lot of trades of picks happening here. But I think if the Vikings, they get aggressive and they're like, hey, like, we can go and get Drake May and Drake May fits more of the mold we're looking for rather than JJ, then you will see a trade. And that's what I think is very telling about this draft. This draft is different in the sense that there's so much evaluation happening of this pool of quarterbacks. Like last year, I don't really feel like the CJ Stroud situation last year was an interesting one, but this year just feels like there's these three guys, then there's JJ, and then there's kind of everybody else. And it's just a question of how you want to play it. Because if you go out and draft JJ at 11 and he disappoints, you're going to look like an idiot because the Vikings have the assets to trade up. And if you don't do that and JJ busts, you're going to look silly.
I'm really curious if Will Levis in Tennessee is a franchise quarterback, because they're not going to be good, Tennessee. I don't think anybody believes that firing Mike Vrabel was the right decision. It was not. I don't think anybody is sold, and I don't know how you would be on Will Levis as a franchise quarterback. So I guess my question is, do you want one of these quarterbacks that's in this draft, or do you want Shedeur Sanders? Because I think Shedeur Sanders is going to be one of the top quarterbacks. I mean, who else is even considered a top draft pick next year at quarterback? Quinn Ewers. Can he stay healthy this year? I don't know. Carson Beck. Does that excite you?
Yeah.
I think most people would tell you Shedeur Sanders is one of the top QB prospects in that draft. Would you rather have Will Levis or Shedeur Sanders? Would you rather have Michael Penix, Free Harbaugh? Now, I mean, name your quarterback in this draft. Drake Maye or Shedeur Sanders? Drake Maye or Will Levis? Like, these are the questions that Tennessee has to balance.
Mm-hmm.
My point is, I probably stick with Will Levis and draft the best available tackle in this draft. Right? I probably get I think you have to give Will Levis this year to be a bust or a boom.
Yeah. And you got to do everything you can to protect him.
And I think you have to get offensive line there.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. I think Tennessee is one of those fulcrum teams that could really change this first round. All right. So again, my top three. I think it is the Bears taking Caleb Williams. I think it is the Commanders taking Jaden Daniels. And I think it is officially my pick. If New England stays, I think it's Drake Maye. If they trade out, I think that is what's likely to happen. I think they trade the third pick.
Yeah, I think they trade the third pick, and I think the Vikings take Drake Maye. I think they come off of JJ McCarthy.
I think they like Drake Maye a lot, Minnesota. And he is a natural fit in there. He has familiarity with their coaching staff. Their offensive coordinator was his high school coach.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's no reason for Minnesota not to get super aggressive here and trade up there. I think the Cardinals are going wide receiver. I think the Chargers trade out and eventually wind up either with that 7th or 8th spot. I don't see any way that I don't know why the Falcons would pick there. I don't know what you guys think about what the Falcons do. I think they need defense in every way that they can get it. I think that you've got to do everything you can do to get the best defensive lineman that you can get. You need edge or linemen in Atlanta.
Yeah.
I don't know how you go away from that.
Yeah, there's no way around that.
Right? I mean, is that Byron Murphy, who I think is the best defensive tackle in this draft? I don't know, but I think if we go down the board a little bit here and we go to 7 at Tennessee, that's an offensive lineman. That's Latham or that's Old. I look at number 8. The Falcons are taking defense. Why are you staying there at number 8? Why are you staying there at 8?
Yeah, it would be smart for them to trade out and try to get a couple of picks in the first round.
I think the Indianapolis Colts move up there to get the best offensive player they can find. I think they're one that I would watch there. I think the Vikings will trade up. I don't believe that they will draft there at 11. I think they move up into 7, 8, 9 territory. And I think if Minnesota moves up to 7, 8, 9, it's JJ McCarthy. If they move up to 3, it's Drake Maye.
Yeah.
I think it's as simple as that.
But I just think I'm telling you, I think that Minnesota, like, I don't know. To me, it doesn't make a lot of sense for Minnesota to move up to 7, 8, 9. I like JJ is going to be there, when you look based on need for these other teams and in their situations, JJ should be there at 11. Like so if you're Minnesota, like in my opinion, I think it's a very simple proposition. It's who do you want? Because JJ is going to be there at 11, and there's no guarantee Drake May is going to be there at 7 or 8. So you need to you need to call New England and get that trade done if you want to guarantee yourself Drake May. And again, you have the assets, you have everything you need to get that deal done. It's just a matter of who you believe in more. And that's what I'm telling you when you're watching the draft tonight. Obviously their pick is going to tell you who they believe in more. But if they were to decide to trade up to like 6, let's say, or 7, that just seems silly to me, given the fact that you can get up to 3 and guarantee that you can get your guy.
But that's a Trubisky style trade.
It is. It is.
It's a lot, but I think Minnesota's the team that should do that.
I just don't think Minnesota can afford a flyer. And everything that I've seen out of JJ coming into the league is, like his defense for, hey, why didn't you throw more at Michigan? He's been asked that a lot. His defense was the offense that we were running, right? Jim's offense is all about running and working behind that offensive line and, not taking huge shots down the field.
Why didn't Washington throw or run more? Why did they throw so much?
Yeah. And so to that I say, hey, Minnesota is not a turnaround and hand it off offense. That's not what that is. And if you're going to draft JJ McCarthy, dude, there better be an understanding that you're drafting someone that you don't know for a fact can be even a 3,500 yard passer in the league, right? Let alone 5,000 yards like Kirk was. So to me, that's why I say Drake May is the much safer pick. Drake May has shown you he's got a cannon. He's shown you that he can move around enough to get the job done. And that's why I would play aggressive. I would take all doubt out, trade up and go and get him, and then move along in the draft. That's what I would do. But again, this is why Minnesota has found a way to be mediocre every season the last 5. Like, you haven't really had a great season yet in recent memory because you're just sputtering.
Where do you think Michael Penix Jr. winds up? Because I think there's only a couple of opportunities. Certainly number 3, I think, is too lofty. I think it's going to be the Bears with Caleb. I think Jaden goes number 2 to Washington.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Drake May ends up number 3 in Minnesota. I think your next best opportunity is, I think it's outside the top 10. And if we're being totally honest, I think it is the Las Vegas Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is the best opportunity for Michael Penix. And let's say there's not a single trade. I think that is the place where he fits right away.
Yeah.
If there's trades, I could see Michael Penix. Michael Penix's draft stock has skyrocketed from a 3rd round pick to top half of the 1st round. And I think he is that guy that you are going to regret passing on. He does not get past Antonio Pierce and the Raiders, in my opinion.
No, I completely agree. And I think, again, situation, right? The Raiders are another organization that hasn't, even with Derek Carr, the Raiders were still mediocre, right? And Derek Carr gave them some of the best football he's had to offer, and they just still couldn't get it done. And they need a fresh start. They need someone who can come in and be a 10-year solution for them. And I believe that Michael Penix Jr. has that ability, has that attention to detail, understands where to put the ball in time and space. And so for them, that's a great pick. If you get Michael Penix at 13, that's a phenomenal pick. I would be thrilled with that. The only problem is that you've got a defensive-minded head coach running that thing, and I'm curious about development and the offense you're going to run.
Yeah, I think they're committed to building an offensive juggernaut. I mean, you don't have Devontae there. You don't have now, obviously, a huge change is coming at running back. But you don't have you don't win in this league without a franchise quarterback. Antonio Pierce, the great destroyer of Arizona State recruiting tactics, is well aware that they need a quarterback. And I think he likes Michael Penix a lot. I think they in Las Vegas like Michael Penix a lot. And in my opinion, when I'm sitting at the sports book on Saturday after dominating TPC Las Vegas,
Because shit's going good.
when I'm sitting at the sports book, I think the Las Vegas Raiders will have a dramatically different look offensively on Saturday night than they have right now on Thursday morning.
Mm-hmm.
I think they have to address that. The Philadelphia Eagles have to do everything they can do to get the best defensive linemen in their reach. And I think edge rusher is a hugely controversial position in this draft. I think there are two defensive positions that are going to be very much regretted by the teams who make the wrong choice. Corner, if you do not take Terrion Arnold as your first corner in this draft, I think you're making a mistake. And listen, I understand that Quinion Mitchell out of Toledo, Ohio, is a phenomenal talent. But you're talking about Nick Saban's last great cornerback prospect and Terrion Arnold. And I really should say it's probably not even a lot of people project him as a corner. I think the guy can be a safety corner hybrid.
Mm-hmm.
I think he is in the right spot at the right time every single snap of the football at Alabama. And he's coached by the best cornerback coach in the history of football, the best secondary coach in the history of football in Nick Saban. You've got to take Terrion Arnold.
Yeah, I think that Arnold is definitely one of those defensive guys who can play a variety of positions. You know, I could easily see him playing a little bit of slot based on the concept that you're running on defense and in the given situation. You could easily see him playing, free safety again with his football
Absolutely.
IQ. You obviously his bread and butter is playing outside.
Yes.
Of course, that's what he's known for. But when you watch his film, the thing that really stands out is, like you said, he's always in the right spot. Seemingly, there's always whether he's defending a screen pass in the backfield, whether he's playing coverage and
tackling at the line of scrimmage,
right? And the other thing you notice about him is he plays physical defense without drawing penalties. And what I'm going to be really curious about in the league for him is, can he manhandle guys the way he did at the college level? Because he manhandled Brock Bowers.
Well, but I think one of the things that's very interesting about him is that you look at the way that corners in this league in the NFL have to perform. You know what he does better than a lot of other corners, and this is going to sound stupidly simplistic. Terrion Arnold catches the fucking ball.
He does.
Yeah, I know it's crazy.
Yeah.
But Terrion Arnold actually catches the football.
Well, and it drives you nuts in the league when cornerbacks are in the right position. They've done everything right, and it goes to their hands.
And they put their hands on their helmet like, I can't believe I dropped that. Are you going to drop interceptions? It's part of the business. This cat, Terrion Arnold, catches the football.
Yeah.
And I think that, listen, I'm not here to tell you that that guys like Nate Wiggins or Cooper DeJean or whoever you want to point to, that's a deep spot. The Quinion Mitchell is a really good performer.
Yeah.
Terrion Arnold's a generational defensive back in the NFL. I also go to edge. I think edge rushers, Dallas Turner is a stud, but you're making a mistake. If you pass on Laiatu Latu, you're making a mistake. How do you block him? Jared Verse, phenomenal player. Laiatu Latu is just different. He is on a different level. And that is, in my opinion, one of the deepest positions in the draft is edge rusher. There are a lot of guys there. But man, you look at Laiatu Latu and you look at the tape on that cat. You go back and look at his performances in games. Good God, he is a monster.
Yeah.
You don't find those guys. And I like Dallas Turner a lot. And I like Jared Verse a lot. I think Jared Verse is, in my opinion, by far the best NFL draft prospect on a Florida State roster that's loaded with NFL draft prospects. Jared Verse is a hell of a player. I think Leatu Latu is just better than all those dudes.
Yeah, and what's interesting too is it seems like every year in the draft we get to like that 15-20 range, and there's always a surprise defensive pick. There's always a team, again, like in this year's draft, again, Jacksonville, let's say, or whoever you want to look at, who it would be classic Jacksonville Jaguars to pass on Terry and Arnold and to go out and get someone else, right? That would be a classic mess up in the
agree.
draft, and so that's why I say, like, I think this, when you're watching the draft, like 23 to 17, that range of pick, that's going to be a highly competitive draft situation because you can't miss there if you're taking defense.
And you're going to take defense.
Yeah, I mean, you have to take defense. And I do agree that when you compare, again, like with corners, like we were just talking about, the Terry and Arnolds of the world can't miss because he does catch the football. And I feel like when you've watched the Super Bowls lately or you've watched the playoffs lately, those picks, man, ultimately decide games. If you can catch that football and get a pick six, that's how you're going to go out and beat a Patty Mahomes. That's how you're going to go out and beat some of the best quarterbacks in the league. You have to take the one or two chances you get and maximize them. So, yeah, what was Jacksonville's biggest issue last year? It was defense. They couldn't stop people when they needed to. That was their issue. So, again, that's why I say when you start getting into the meat of the first round, this defensive stuff winds up deciding playoff games. And I'm telling you can't miss with these picks. You have to make sure that whoever you take is going to be a hit. Because if you miss, that there's just not, and you're not coming back from that.
I think Saint Restrellit, Michigan's a very interesting prospect as well. He's falling. And it's really interesting that I think, Enos Rakestraw at Mizzou has moved above him now on most people's draft boards. And I think it's a size issue with him. My question is Mike Sainristil anything more than a really good special teams player in the NFL? Because I don't think you can put him at corner or safety and feel confident that physically he can hold up. I mean, if you look at the corner board, like Cooper DeJean at Iowa, I think he's going to be a dominant physical on-ball slot corner in the NFL for a decade.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see him move around the field. You can put Cooper DeJean at any position that you want. I think guys like, again, Mitchell, Arnold, Wiggins, McKinstry, I think Kool-Aid is one of those guys that's going to be a jackrabbit in this league. My biggest question about Mike Sainristil is, can he stay healthy and play across the board in the NFL? And I don't think he can. I don't think he can. And I think, another guy, TJ Tampa at Iowa State's a really interesting prospect. I was listening to the ESPN front office guy whose name that Field Yates. You know how many radio shows I've done with Field Yates and I couldn't pull his name? Field Yates has talked about him and moved him up. There's a lot of talent there. Corner's going to be a very interesting position. Okay. I know we've run through this and we've flapped our gums. Let's see where you guys come down on this. Let's see. Dakota Tubbs, Will Levis is not a franchise quarterback. It's a fascinating question.
For Tennessee, right? Because again, it matters who you are.
Yes.
So for Tennessee, Will Levis is close to being a franchise quarterback. He's got to prove he can be productive, though. And that's why they're going to draft offensive line.
And I think you have to give him the chance.
You do.
But I also think it opens you up. I'm not the quarterback class next year, I don't think is fantastic. Now, that changes when we get to the end of September. The draft board for quarterbacks for a year from now is going to be completely different because there's always a dude that emerges. There's always a guy but I think Shedeur Sanders is the best quarterback prospect in the draft a year from now.
Yeah.
He's going to have to stay healthy and they're going to have to show he can stay healthy. But you look at the beating that he took and his want to continue to keep going. I think you look at his arm talent is unquestioned. He's a really well coached. He's got great mechanics. If you're Tennessee, I would think I haven't seen a projection outside of Tennessee being the worst team in the NFL this year.
Yeah.
I have not seen that. Carolina is going to be in that mix as well. But I think Tennessee, I agree with you. Will Levis is not a franchise. Yes, there you go. And you said right after that, wait for Shador. I think that's what you do.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly right. Quinn Ewers, Christopher Shannon says. Quinn Ewers or Shador Sanders?
Shador Sanders. I'm not convinced Quinn is going to be a big-time NFL guy. He's a big-time college quarterback, but I'm not convinced yet. I need to see a little
Does
more.
Sark believe in him? Because one of the interesting things about the Texas football situation, not even going to the SEC, how are you this deep at quarterback? And how is Cooper Manning sitting there dominating your spring session? By all accounts in Austin, Texas, Manning had a phenomenal spring season. Phenomenal. From the practices to the scrimmages to the spring game, he dominated. I watched a good part of the Texas spring game. He was their best quarterback, and I'm not sure it was close. I don't know why Quinn Ewers is still at Texas. I don't know how Sark is going to handle this.
Yeah.
He's going to have so much pressure to play Manning, and he's not going to do it. He's going to play Quinn Ewers.